And you may begin.
Thank you. Good evening. I would like to call this meeting to order at 7:58. Welcome to the July 10th City of Burlingame Planning Commission meeting. For all those in attendance today, please note that this Planning Commission meeting is being held in person and using this Zoom webinar format. For those of you attending via Zoom, please note that there are several ways to submit comments during this meeting. You may raise your hand in Zoom by clicking on the raise hand button located at the bottom of your screen. Members of the public who are participating in the Zoom webinar by phone can dial *9 to raise a hand. That's *9. You may also send your comments by email to publiccomment@burlingame.org. Staff will be monitoring emails during this period in the meeting, which will be read at the appropriate time. The length of the emailed comment should be commensurate with 3 minutes customarily allowed for verbal comments. If you are an applicant or an applicant's representative, I will ask you to raise your hand when your agenda item is up for discussion so that we may be prepared for you to speak at the appropriate time. We ask that you also turn on your video at that time so that we may have a more clear communication simulating the experience we would have if we were meeting in person. This meeting is also being streamed live on YouTube and will be uploaded to the city's website. Agenda item number 2, roll call. The record should note that 6 members of our commission are present this evening. Commissioner Say is absent. Agenda item number 3, request for AB 2249, remote participation. I don't believe there are any commissioners participating remotely. Approval of the minutes. We have meeting minutes to review and approve from the meeting of June 26, 2023 of the regular Planning Commission meeting. Are there any comments, changes? Yes.
I just want to say that Audrey's trying to get a hold of me, so I don't know if he is, but I'm just going to pick up the call real quick.
She may just be running late.
I'm sorry?
Commissioner Say just may be running late.
Okay, very good. Thank you. On the minutes, are we good?
I would just like to say I was absent, but I have watched the video and read the minutes for
Okay.
26.
Thank you. Does anyone want to make a motion?
Before we make a motion, we should wait for Commissioner.
She'll be here in a few minutes. She's just parking.
Thank you.
Is it okay if we go ahead?
Of course, and Commissioner Camarado, we're just talking about the approval of the minutes right now, and we're looking for a motion.
I have a motion, please.
Make a motion to approve the minutes.
I'll second that.
Okay. Good.
Commissioner Camarado,
I wasn't here at the last meeting, but I did review the video.
thank you. Commissioner Haram,
Aye.
Commissioner Schmid,
Aye.
Commissioner Shores,
Aye.
Vice Chair Lowenthal.
Aye.
Chair Foth.
Aye. Agenda item 5, approval of the agenda. Are there any changes to our agenda this evening?
Yes, we have one item that's going to be continued, item 10B, 5 Rio Court. Will be continued and will be reviewed at a later meeting date. Public hearing notices will be sent out for that meeting once it's agendized.
All right, thank you. And then do we have any recusals? Believe it or not, this time I have recused. So Jennifer Boff is recusing from 9E, which is 123 Primrose for non-statutory reasons, and from 9G, which is 250 California Drive, because I have potential conflict of interest with the nonprofit in which I'm involved. Okay. Agenda item 6, public comments, non-agenda. Members of the public may speak out about any item not on the agenda. Members of the public wishing to suggest an item for a future planning commission agenda meeting may do so during the public comment period. The Ralph Brown Act, the state local agency open meeting law, prohibits the planning commission from acting on any matter that is not on the agenda. Speakers are limited to 3 minutes each. Please speak clearly into the microphone. Do we have any members of the public who wish to speak on any item that is not on the agenda? And I have received an item that is on the agenda, so maybe wait until that item for that one. But is anyone else wanting to speak, or are there any members of the public on Zoom or phone?
We received no public comment emails for non-agenda items.
Excuse me, and there are no hands raised on the Zoom.
Okay, great, thank you. So moving along, study items, there are no study items for review. And now we're going to talk about consent calendar. Items on the consent calendar are considered to be routine. They are acted on simultaneously unless separate discussion and or action is requested by the applicant, a member of the public, or a commissioner prior to the time the commission votes on the motion to adopt. This evening, we have 3 items on the consent calendar. It looks like we have a member of the public who would like to pull an item for the discussion. So shall we do that first, which is,
We can first determine whether that member of the public would like to do so, and then if there's any other commissioners who would like to pull any items from the.
okay, would that member of the public like to come forward?
Um,
Or,
This would be for item 8A, 1588 Columbus Avenue.
the person, is
Well, and
Williams?
I'm sure, but Chair Pfaff, we would probably want to, we can hear which item he would like to pull. And then we can continue with the consent calendar to determine whether we can pass it, and then we'll hear that item following that motion.
Got it. Okay,
Sir, are you wishing to speak about item 8A? Yes. Yeah. Thank you.
okay, are there any other, we're going to separate this then? Are there any other members out there or here who would like to pull an item? Hi, Commissioner Say. And then seeing none, and
No hands raised on Zoom.
And no public comment.
all right, so then we're going to approve first of all.
Well, yes, Chair Pfaff. So we need to do a motion to approve consent items 8B and 8C.
Okay, then may I have a motion to approve items 8B and 8C?
I make a motion that we approve items 8B and 8C on the consent calendar.
I'll second that motion.
Great. Commissioner Camerado,
Aye.
Commissioner Haran,
Aye.
Commissioner Schmidt,
Aye.
Commissioner Shores,
Aye.
Commissioner Say,
Aye.
Vice Chair Lowenthal,
Aye.
Chair Pfaff.
Aye.
Motion passes 7-0.
Thank you very much. And now we're going back to agenda item 8A. So just,
Staff can present the staff report first,
I'm sorry.
and then we'll take
Mhm.
comments or questions from the commission,
Okay,
and then we'll ask the applicant to come up, and then those from the public can speak as well. First, we'll start off with the staff report.
thank you.
Okay. Item number 8A, 1588 Columbus Avenue. The applicant is proposing to keep the existing house and garage and to add a first floor addition at the rear of the house and a new 935 square foot second story. The existing garage is non-conforming in length, but because the attached garage is not being altered, the covered parking space provided does not need to be increased in size. There are 4 existing trees on site that will be retained with construction, and the project exceeds the landscaping requirement minimum by 1 tree. There are suggested findings listed in the staff report for your reference, and I can take any questions you have at this time.
Do any of you have any questions? Okay. Then it's okay if I call then.
Sorry, Chair Pfaff, we forgot to read the appeal procedures for the consent calendar items. So let's do that now.
Oh.
And then we will open it up for the public.
Procedures meaning, I didn't read that part.
Just for item 8B, since it did pass, we
Oh.
read the,
The last.
Yeah.
Um. Last.
So bottom.
Yes,
page.
got it. An action, sorry. An action by the planning commission is appealable to the council within 10 days. The planning commission's action. The planning commission's action has not been appealed or called up for review by the city council by 5 p.m. on the 10th day. The action becomes final. In order to be effective, appeals must be in writing and must be accompanied by an appeal fee of $780, which includes noticing costs. Thank you very much and congratulations on those items.
Great, thank you. And again, just for the public, that was the appeal procedures for item 8B, 615 Airport Boulevard. We are now returning to 1588 Columbus Avenue.
So, oh, and we don't have comments on that either. So it's okay if I ask the public for,
We should ask the applicant if the applicant would like to make any remark.
yeah, does the applicant want to present anything or make any?
Hi, can you hear me?
Yes,
Okay, so we made a couple changes that was suggested by the planning commissioner at the last meeting. So the texture of the stucco will match the existing. And we added a couple header trim just to dress up the front furthermore. That's about it. I'm very curious about our neighbors or someone who wants to say something about this project. So I'd like to reserve some time to respond if I can. Thank you.
okay, thank you, James. All right, now I can go to the public, right? All right, would a member of the public in this room like to speak? Do you want to go to the, yeah,
Hi, is this picking up?
Mhm.
Great. Hi, my name is Sam Williams. I, with my wife, Kara Williams, own the adjoining property at 2301 Valdivia Way in Burlingame. And really, first of all, I want to thank this commission for letting us know about this improvement that's planned. Kevin, thank you for sending us the note. We live in a wonderful neighborhood, and I'm really proud of the investment that our neighbors have put into their properties, and we're excited to see our neighbors continue to invest in their properties. And really, on the face of it, I don't have any major concerns with what the co-property is planning. One thing that was not so clear in the plans as drawn was that the slope that's at the back of the property runs down into Mills Creek. And this is actually quite a steep slope. And they're planning on putting the back of their property within 15 feet of where this drops off about 30 feet down into an active waterway. This waterway along Mills Creek in the summer doesn't carry all that much water. In the winter, it picks up a considerable amount of water. And we've noticed that there have been landslides along its length, which have threatened a number of the properties. And so what we want to ensure is that this is in the record. This is being built right next to an active waterway. We also want to ensure that appropriate engineering considerations are built in to mitigate any kind of landslide risks that might be incurred by building in this way. We also want to ensure that water that comes out of the property, and I'll point out that in their plans, they have said that's going to the street side. We want to make sure that in no event does that go into the stream or into any kind of drainage ditch that abuts the stream bed, because that would definitely contribute to the risk of slippage. Again, we're very happy to see our neighbors developing their land. We just want to make sure that everything is developed in a responsible way to ensure that we don't damage the waterways we all enjoy. Thank you.
thank you very much for comments. Is there anyone else here to speak or online or?
There are no public comment emails submitted.
And I don't see any, I do know the applicant had asked if he could respond, so could bring him back. He may be able to address some of the concerns that have,
Mhm. Yeah, that's fine. Okay, James.
let me come back.
Hi. Oops.
Hi.
Okay, so the public work did request that that we show a top of a bank, and that we have to stay out of it, and that's what we did. The foundation will actually match the existing, and it is 15 feet away, but the area that we're building is mostly flat, and that's been there for a long time. So and it's only a single story. That's 15 feet away from the property line. So I think we will address the comment regards to the drainage, engineering foundation when we're ready to submit for building permit.
Okay, thank you very much. Are there any other questions, comments? I'm going to leave that to staff. Is that?
That's in your purview, Chair Pfaff, if you'd like to.
Yeah, okay, that's fine. Mhm.
I will point out that the abutting property does appear to be trying to mitigate some slippage that's occurring on the slope that's right nearby. And so I really do think that you need to take that seriously. Building a standard foundation in that space is putting the stream bed at risk. It's putting your property at risk. And I'd really like that to be entered into the record so that if there is future damage that's caused to the stream bed, that that is acknowledged before this project begins.
Thank you very much. Okay, yeah.
A question for staff. So that item isn't really one of our items and would be an engineering item to be
Correct. Yeah, those issues are going to be reviewed by the Department of Public Works as well as the Building Division, Structural Division to make sure that the correct type of foundation is used in this case, and also that the the drainage is properly handled as well. So you're correct. It's not really under the purview of the Planning Commission. It will be taken care of during the building permit review process.
So rather than that being any kind of condition that we would have anything to do with, would that be something that you could include as a note within the record of the evening so that then Public Works actually knows that we had this conversation?
Sure, we can include that in the minutes of the meeting.
Perfect. Thank you.
Yeah, that's what I was thinking.
I have just a
Mark?
question for staff as well. Isn't the creek part of Fish and Game? And so is Fish and Game the entity that kind of needs to control what happened on the creek or?
It is a combination of both the city and Department of Fish and Wildlife. So they do work in concert together. Department of Fish and Wildlife won't necessarily review this project. However, if there's any work done within the creek bank, for example, if construction debris is, ends up in the creek or beyond the top of bank, then they would certainly get involved.
Okay, thank you.
Anyone else?
Comments?
Yeah, sure thing.
I just wanted to thank the applicant for addressing our comments. I think the enhancements are beautiful aesthetically to coordinate with the already beautiful design of the home. And I don't know if there's any other comments, but I would move that we approve this.
Before
for this.
we go forward, Madam Chair, I don't believe we've closed the public hearing yet. We'll want to close the public hearing.
Right, then
There's no other.
if there are no other comments, I'm going to close public comment. Right.
We'll resume with moving this project to approval per the conditions of the staff report.
Second that.
All right,
All right. Commissioner Camerado,
Aye.
Commissioner Haran,
Aye.
Commissioner Schmid,
Aye.
Commissioner Shores,
Aye.
Commissioner Say,
Aye.
Vice Chair Lowenthal,
Aye.
and Chair Fa.
aye.
Motion passes 7-0, and we need to
Oh, you have
proceed.
to read my sentence, wait. Any action by the planning commission is appealable to the city council within 10 days. The planning commission's action. If the planning commission's action has not been appealed or called up for review by the city council by 5 p.m. on the 10th day, the action becomes final. In order to be effective, appeals must be in writing and must be accompanied by an appeal fee of $784, which includes noticing costs. Congratulations. Thank you very much, Mr. Williams, for coming. Okay, then we're going to move along to agenda item 9, regular action item, plural. Okay, the first one is item 9A, 814 Paloma Avenue. If you are the applicant and are attending the meeting via Zoom, please raise your hand so that we may be prepared for you to speak at the appropriate time. If possible, we ask that you also turn on your video at that time. For commissioners not able to visit the project site, or do any commissioners wish to note any ex parte communications regarding this project? And I don't think we have any recusals. Let the record note that all commissioners present have visited the project site. Can we have the staff report, please?
Yes, this is an application for design review and special permits for first plate height and attached garage for a first floor addition to an existing single unit dwelling at 814 Paloma Avenue, zoned R1. Subject property is an interior lot and contains an existing one-story single unit dwelling and detached garage. The applicant is proposing to demolish the existing detached garage, add a new single car attached garage along the right side of the house, and add a first floor addition at the rear of the house. The project proposes a total floor area of 1,983 square feet, where 2,828 square feet is the maximum allowed. With this application, the number of bedrooms would increase from 2 to 4. 2 parking spaces, one of which must be covered, are required for the house. The attached one-car garage provides 1 covered parking space and 1 uncovered space is provided in the driveway. The applicant is also requesting a special permit for a first-story plate height of 10 feet, where 9 feet is the maximum allowed without a special permit. Staff would note that the 10-foot plate height is only proposed within the family room. All other zoning code requirements. The Planning Commission Design Review Study Meeting on April 24th, 2023. The commission had several comments and suggestions for this project. The applicant submitted a response letter dated June 6th and revised plans date stamped June 20th to address your concerns. Suggested findings for design review and special permit for first story plate height and attached garage found on pages 3 and 4 of your staff report. I'd be happy to take questions of staff, but I know the applicant is here as well.
Are there any questions of staff? No? Okay. So I'm going to open the public hearing. Would the applicant please come forward, state your name and anything else you'd like to add about your project?
Good evening. My name is Joe Sable from Arrow 11 Design. I just wanted to say thank you very much for your time and eyeballs on our project. And I just wanted to quickly recap some of the items that we addressed and just wanted to go down them very quickly. I think the main one is we tried to simplify the different roof elements, taking our cues from the last meeting about trying to simplify the roof form and roof mass. So we eliminated the shed roof in the rear and tried to continue the gable roof aesthetic and kind of simplify the massing. We also added the trellis elements in the gable portions of the rear, and we also tried to cohesify the decks so we could get them to so there's a more practical path through the two originally separate decks, now kind of more combined in terms of path of travel. And also tweak the perspectives to make them a little bit more of a gentler angle on review, just to give a more reflective perspective from the rear perspectival views. And also wanted to, just more of a technical note, to address, we removed the no work note on the interior of the plan to address the bedroom door work that was going on in the interior of the floor plan. So I'm here to answer any questions you might have. Thank you very much for your time.
Thank you very much. Are there any other questions? Yes. Mhm.
Yeah, I'm not sure if it's a question or, I just wanted to clarify, maybe just a draft. I think it might be a drafting error on the roof plan. There are a couple of crickets, and one at the garage, one over the rear addition. And on the front elevation, we can see the one that's above the garage. But the one that's over the rear addition is missing on the front and rear elevations, I believe.
I think that might be a combination of a drafting error and also just the perspectival angle that you might not be able to see that particular cricket because of the height off the grade. But probably a drafting error.
I think you're going to see it if
Okay.
you're getting the arrows right.
Correct.
But I see that you did mark it at the garage, but it's missing on the
Okay.
other.
My apologies for that.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you.
Are there any other questions of the applicant? Okay, thank you very much.
Thank you very much.
All right, so. Do we have any members of the public who wish to speak on this item, or do we receive any public comments, emails, and
We received no public comment emails.
There are 17 attendees, but no hands are raised.
okay. So I'm gonna close the public hearing. Commissioners, any comments?
I appreciate the change in the roof form. It'd make a big difference for the back. It simplifies things, so it did exactly what we hoped it would do. So thank you for that. Unless there's other comments, I'm happy to make a motion that we approve this as presented in the staff report,
I'll second that motion.
including the special permit for the height.
Okay. Commissioner Camerado,
Aye.
Commissioner Haran,
Aye.
Commissioner Schmid,
Aye.
Commissioner Shores,
Aye.
Commissioner Say,
Aye.
Vice Chair Lowenthal.
Aye.
Chair Fa.
Aye.
Motion passes 7-0.
An action by the planning commission is appealable to the city council within 10 days of the planning commission's action. If the planning commission's action has not been appealed or called up for review by the city council by 5 p.m. on the 10th day, the action becomes final. In order to be effective, appeals must be, in writing, and must be accompanied by an appeal fee, $784, which includes noticing costs. Congratulations. That brings us to item 9B, 1344 Cortez. If you are the applicant and are attending meeting via Zoom, please raise your hand so that we may be prepared for you to speak at the appropriate time. If possible, we ask for you to also turn on your video at that time. Were any commissioners not able to visit the project site, or do any commissioners wish to note any ex parte communications regarding this project? Nope. And no one is recusing from this item. Let the record note that all commissioners present have visited the project site. Can we hear the staff report, please?
Yes, the applicant is proposing to demolish the existing structures on the site and to build a new 2-story single-unit dwelling and detached 1-car garage. The proposed project is under the maximum allowable floor area and meets the required parking minimums. The site contains 1 landscape tree that is proposed to be removed and that is not of protected size. The proposed landscape plan shows 6 new 24-inch size landscape trees to be planted on the site. which complies with the tree reforestation ordinance requirements. There are suggested findings for the requested design review application listed in your staff report, along with 14 conditions of approval for the project. That concludes the project introduction, and I can answer questions of staff.
Are there any questions of staff? Okay. All right, so I'm gonna open up the public hearing. Would the applicant please come forward and state your name and anything else you'd like us to know about your project?
Good evening, Yossi Zinger with TRG Architects. Thank you for considering us today, and thank you for your input on June 26th at the study session. And we got some good feedback from you guys, and I think we tried to address all the comments, and I'll just go quickly through them. So in general, there was you liked the clean massing and the roof shapes that use cross gables to hide the solar panels from both the street and the backyard, and the general layout of the house. But you thought it was a little bit stark and simple, and perhaps could benefit from a little more trim.
Excuse me, can you stop? Yeah, it's all being recorded, so make it
Not picking up.
those making the minutes. Thank you.
Okay.
Oh, sorry.
Sorry. So we added trim at both the top and the bottom of the front gable, and did that for all the gables in the house, including the garage. We've also added a white band at the bottom of the projecting portion that's cantilevered over the over a window bay with an accenting color in the front, and added below to both soften the gable and to provide visual support from below. This is all consistent with a modern Tudor style house, and we use twin brackets, which is a hallmark of the style. We did the same for the cantilever over the driveway to add detail at that point. We've also lightened the color of the trim to make it a little less stark contrast between the trim and the stucco. We also, you felt the porch needed to be a little bit wider to allow for furniture. So we've made the porch 6 feet deep with an overhang of 9 feet. I'm sorry, 9 inches more on the roof. So the roof is 6'9". What else? You asked about the windows. We included some window details to show you how those work in the stucco. Again, a hallmark of the Tudor style is that the windows don't have extra trim around it. It's just a window trim in the stucco itself. And we brought some images to help illustrate these things. I don't know if you have time to see them. It's up to you guys. You can go through the things. I'll go pretty quickly. So passed out. So you can see the added trim here. Keep going, go ahead. On the back, we did the same. And then there was going to be some other images that are not I don't know if Catherine, will we be able to include those? Catherine? Will we be able to include?
So we have.
I'm sorry, I'm Erica, not Catherine.
Oh, you're Erica. I'm so sorry.
Others may have had access to them on the plans that were
No.
posted on Legistar, but I don't know that they made.
That's okay. We included them with those, but they're not important. They're just images of Tudor style houses that showed the Tudor trim and window.
Thank you for providing those.
Sure. I'm happy to answer any questions, and I did bring them with me if you want.
Are there any questions for the applicant?
Hi, what is the material on the first floor roof?
It's on the flat roof.
Yeah.
It's a pebble river rock on a membrane roofing, flat membrane roofing.
Okay, so it is river rock.
It's river rock, yeah.
Okay, and then the front fascia and trim is a wood painted, or is it a aluminum painted?
It's aluminum painted.
Painted, okay.
It's heavy gauge aluminum.
Okay, just an FYI, I've seen my neighbor with the same roof structure, and already the gutter has started to deteriorate after just 2 years because of the pebbles moving around. Just something to keep in mind during maybe.
Yeah, we've used this detail before, and we have a way of keeping the pebbles from doing that.
Thank you.
Yes, Commissioner Say.
Yeah, I was just curious, what is the, seam spread on the standing seam metal roof, if you know that?
It's a fairly standard module. It's 14 inches.
14 inches? Thank you.
Other questions? No? We
It
could,
was, the landscape architect is also available on Zoom if you,
I'm sorry.
the landscape architect is available on Zoom.
Oh.
if you need to talk to
Oh, that's nice.
some tree stuff, but
Yes, it
Got
was actually pretty clear plan, so I appreciate that. Very nicely done. Okay. So then I'm going to ask if, so yes, we have to say, are there any members of the public who would like to speak on this item? Or did we receive any public comment emails, hands, phone, or otherwise?
No public comment email submitted.
There's 17 attendees on Zoom, but no hands are raised.
Okay, great. Then I'm gonna close the public hearing. Are there any comments from fellow commissioners?
Well, I appreciate the changes you made. A guy who said about the width of the, or the depth of the front porch, so I appreciate that. And I think the details you've added have enhanced the project.
I agree. I think I really appreciate the depth. Yeah, it just looks like a richer project to me. It has a lot more visual interest and definitely appreciate the work done on the landscape plan. So good. Anyone else?
Okay, I'll go.
Right.
I do think it has gotten better, but it's still largely flat to me. And even though we're calling it a modern tutor, as I'm looking at some modern tutors on the internet, they have overhangs and have depth to them. And this one just seems very flat. I know you added some trims, which definitely improved from the last time, but I'm trying to see better modern interpretations. We see a lot of them that are just flat. And I was driving by one that was a modern farmhouse on Mills the other day, and they had done a really nice job on their trim and their depth, and it looked really nice. There's a few others I've driven around town and they're flat, and I'm sorry that they got approved. So I really would like to encourage that modern doesn't mean get rid of everything. It means think about it differently and continue to work on the depth of the architecture and not just strip it down to be cheaper. And I know that's not what you're trying to do, but that's how it comes off. Because we get windows without any grids and we get no trim and no belly bands or anything. And then it just becomes stucco. And that's not really what we're trying to achieve in an interpretation of really Tudor being a lot of trims and richness to it as a design talk. So I encourage, keep working on it. It's I think that there's some things that you could do to improve it before you finish up.
Any other comments? I'm looking
At me, I guess I should say something. Yeah, I would say, I'm struggling a little bit because I do appreciate the pared down modern Tudor style. But I also appreciate what, Commissioner Schmidt just shared. I think he was saying that the fascia over the front porch is metal. Painted metal,
Oh, yeah.
aluminum, yeah, and then I'm presuming that the belly band is, I should have clarified, is wood or some type of trim material. So I'm kind of concerned about how that transitions from one plane to another. It reads as one element on the elevations and also probably in the rendering. But in reality, the textural difference, the material difference and how they may react to the natural environment may be different. And I'm trying to find a solution, but I feel like that flat roof over the front porch wants to be something a little bit more traditional, even pared down traditional towards modern, but rather than just a flat roof. But I can't find what the solution is, and it just kind of toggling between what I like and what I don't like about the project.
The two
I think-
elements,
Oh, that's okay. I think I have to open the public hearing again.
I don't have to respond. I just.
Oh, no, you can, right? That's okay. I get to do that.
Yep, up to your discretion.
Yeah,
If
I-
you do reopen the public hearing, you'll have to determine whether there's other comments after. as well.
Oh, okay, that's right. So first I do other comments? from-
No, you can certainly open it back up. We just have to make sure that if we do reopen it, that we
Yeah, I'm sorry. I didn't mean to reopen.
Well, actually,
By-
I'd be curious because it's,
Yeah.
mhm.
So the trim and the aluminum fascia are going to be painted the same color, and the aluminum is a very stable material. It doesn't deteriorate. It keeps its shape, and the wood needs to be maintained, obviously, but it like any other material. But it's something that people are used to painting, and we've hadn't any problems with doing that. They are slightly different in their shape. The aluminum is actually the gutter that goes around, and we get these gutters that are a heavy gauge aluminum. They're not flimsy, and they help cover the fascia entirely so that you get a clean look to it. The idea of the modern Tudor is that it does look very clean and crisp, and it's the massing and the proportions that make it look good. And the clean modern detailing is actually more expensive to achieve than having a lot of protuberances and things sitting on it. So we think that this is an appropriate way of detailing it. I don't know if you can entertain looking at this or not, but we're not proposing a completely clean Tudor, but we'll want to keep the shape and the overhangs to and it's not just modern Tudors that do this. The actual, if you look at historical Tudors, when they first started out from back in England, they had no trim, no overhangs, and as they became Tudor revivals, they still, the true style. Now, it's been enhanced and used other ways, obviously, but it has still no overhangs and no trim around the window. And it's the clean shape of the building that, the massing that makes it look beautiful. And then occasionally they do also a hallmark of it is that they do windows that are surrounded by painted trim, which again, in a very simple way, no corbels, no classical elements, just clean painted trim and clean painted windows. The ones in the stucco have no frames around them at all, and no overhang on the building. And then as it moves, this one is in Hillsborough, another modern Tudor, very, very clean. And it doesn't look cheap at all. It doesn't have that. If it's done badly, yes, I understand.
Yeah.
But when you do it well, the details are very clean and very well resolved, and don't need the extra hangs and extra stuff on it. There are some more stock examples, of course, but we're not proposing that. And even some of the traditional ones in Hillsborough, there's another one, very little trim, clean windows. I mean, this is from 1920 probably. And that's the feel that we're trying to do, especially in a small house like this. We don't want to overpower it or put too much stuff on it, but we want to let the massing read for itself and the simplicity of the roof shape telegraph through what you're seeing when you look at the house, so that it doesn't get lost in all that stuff.
Okay, thank you. And that would like to ask if there's anyone else who would like to speak about this. I'm keeping the public comment open. Anyone else?
There were no public comment emails submitted.
And no hands raised.
Okay, great, thank you. And I'm going to close the public hearing. So we started making comments, but any more comments?
So, I think you brought up some nice examples of those other tutors, but I think on some of those tutors, they have some of the divided lights, and it gives that feeling of some of those leaded windows that they used to use, gives it some depth. And I feel like maybe it could even just be the windows just need to be relooked at, because I feel like it's not giving it that detail and that oomph that it needs. I'm not so, I don't mind the flat roof. I just feel like it's just missing some lack of detail, that it just needs a little bit more. And I think it's in the windows for me, but I'd like my fellow commissioners to chime in on that.
Commissioner Lowenthal.
Yeah, I wholeheartedly agree with Commissioner Camerado. I also think that in the pictures you were showing, they all had textured roofs. They had shingle roofs, not a metal flats. I don't think you'd find a metal flat roof in the English countryside unless they're going for a country farmhouse as opposed to a modern Tudor. So I agree. I think maybe relook at the roof, not necessarily the flat roof, but maybe the material of the main roof, and potentially looking at gridding the windows in some fashion would add some depth. You don't have to overlay it with a lot of trim or corbels and things like that, but I agree with the depth. I think that's spot on.
Yeah, I appreciate, thank you for sharing those examples. As I'm kind of studying the front elevation mainly more, I think where I am struggling with is the that kind of pure classicism on the right-hand side of the home, and then the left side becoming a departure from that. I recognize and appreciate the modernity that you're bringing in, but for example, we're talking about windows. Maybe the arrangement of the windows over the ones below, something to have some type of symmetry and balance on that left side may help to project more of that classicism on the left side of the house. And I try to play around with a little bit of a roof detail. I think it might get a little bit too busy. So I'm not sure. I think the flat roof could work. I think it's just a balancing of kind of these just classic arrangements that you carried out very well on the right side of the front elevation, as well as on the, I think it's the right elevation with that cantilevered component that pops out. I think has some nice balance to that elevation. It's just that left front side that looks like it needs a little bit of attention.
Any other comments? No? Well, I'm kind of also, I'm a bit torn because I appreciate it's an improvement of last time. What worries me a little about the, we haven't talked about the stucco, the really smooth stucco. And you probably have good craftsperson people doing it, but often it's not done very well. And so it really shows every single little flaw. So if it's so pared down and there's not a lot of distractions besides that stucco there, and there's no roof overhang. I think the danger is that unless it's really perfectly executed, it could look not so good. So it's, I don't know, potentially difficult. So we're going to go.
I'm not so worried about the stucco because I think that have new materials out there. And so if you look at some of the newer constructions, the old ones, kind of that bumpy stucco used to crack a lot, but the smooth stucco, I don't know whatever material they use now, but it's really pretty in it. And I think it stands up well with time. So I'm not so worried about the stucco.
So
So we can make a motion to continue it, correct?
You certainly could, yes.
So I'll make a motion to continue this to the next meeting with a few of these changes potentially added. I don't think a lot of big changes, but I would make a motion to continue this.
I'll second that motion.
Okay, Commissioner Camerado,
Aye.
Commissioner Hand,
Nay.
Commissioner Schmid,
Aye.
Commissioner Shores,
Aye.
Commissioner Say,
Aye.
Vice Chair Lowenthal.
Aye.
And Chair Fox.
Aye.
Motion to continue passes 6-1-0.
Okay, thank you very much. So do I do the, we're continuing it, so I don't have to do the action.
The action is not appealable.
actions. Oh,
No, it's just not appealable.
it's, oh, actions not appealable. Sorry about that. Okay, now we're moving to item 9C 1116 Bernal Avenue. If you are the applicant and are attending the meeting via Zoom, please raise your hand so we may be prepared for you to speak at the appropriate time. If possible, we ask that you also turn on your video at that time. Were any commissioners not able to visit the project site, or do any commissioners wish to note any ex parte communications regarding this project? No, anybody's recusing. Let the record show that all commissioners present have visited the project site. Can we hear the staff report, please?
Yes, the applicant is proposing to demolish the existing dwelling and attached garage and to build a new two-story single-unit dwelling and an attached two-car garage. The proposed project complies with maximum allowable floor area, and it provides the required two covered parking spaces in the attached garage. There's a proposed landscape plan on sheet L1 of the plans, which include 3 new street trees. There are suggested findings for the requested design review application that are included in the staff report, along with the 14 standard conditions of approval for the project. I can take any questions you have at this time.
Are there any questions of staff? Okay, thank you very much. I'm going to open the public hearing where the applicant can come forward and their name and then like to add about your project. Maybe it's Zoom. Jesse's not, it's Jesse, right?
Yeah, let me bring him in. Sorry. Samantha's not. We have 2 Jesse cursors. We'll see what happens here. Ah, there we go.
Hello, commissioners. Whew, that was close. I was afraid I wasn't even on. Good evening. How's everyone doing?
Hey,
Excellent. Thank you. I want to thank you again for the opportunity to represent our project and your comments. We've taken them to heart, and we revised the plans accordingly. As you had commented, I think if I could just reiterate, was the left-hand side of the building had the windows seemed a little bit too organized in some ways. So, it was, one of the recommendations to higher the windows on that left-hand side for not only privacy for the neighbors, but also for some articulation. So what we've done is we've reduced the height of those windows by 18 inches, making them smaller on the left side of that building. So I hope that is satisfactory to the commissioners. In regards to the landscaping, I know there was a comment in regards that all those cypress trees were kind of uninviting and not very neighborly. So what we've done is we've removed all those cypress trees in the front of the residence and kind of re-landscape things accordingly and gave it a little bit more articulations. I do have to mention that I do notice that one tree is missing on our landscape plan. It's at the very front. It should be another red maple, but it didn't show up for some reason. So I just wanted to make that aware to the commissioners. And then I think the other issue was that the overall project, I think everybody felt that it was a fairly nice project. So I'm here to answer any questions that you may have.
I have a couple questions, but I'm going to let my fellow commissioners. No? No? Okay, well, I was going to ask you about that, the missing tree. So are you saying that, I noticed quite a few changes in the landscape plan actually, but are you saying in the front, so you have a ginkgo on the left because we had comments about having something more substantial to sort of put the house in perspective because of its size,
Mhm.
right? And then you're saying there's a maple that's on the south side?
It would go like almost center in the front of the property, just above where it says property line, 75 feet. So there's kind of an empty space there that there was a red maple that was supposed to go there.
Oh, I
And,
see.
yeah.
And then they removed the ginkgos in the back. There were 4
yes.
ginkgos.
Yes,
Yeah.
and then we replaced those with crepe myrtle trees.
So
Little
is that because the neighbors were saying they were worried about the driveway or something? Why was that done?
That's a separate issue. That the issue there, I still have those trees there, but I've denoted in keynote 7 that we would work with the neighbors and figure out a tree that was a good selection for them and also for our clients, and that wouldn't uproot any of their paving next door or anything like that. So yeah, that was basically something that we'll work with the neighbors to provide.
So you're talking about both the 4 trees in the back, whatever they may end up being, and the cypress along the edge, or you're just talking about the myrtles in the back?
Well, one of the questions that you had are in the last meeting was that we had ginkgos in the back and
That's
that they were large and maybe messy. So we replaced those with the crepe myrtles, which are a little smaller and less
Mhm.
messy in the tree with, not as big of a root system. So those are the 4 in the back that we replaced.
Right.
Yeah.
And you're working with them on the cypress, or those are staying?
The cypress is on the left-hand side. We're going to work with the neighbors on that to figure out what would work best. And, that's up for discussion. I mean, that's not something that's in stone or what have
Mhm.
you.
Okay. Yeah, I just wanted to understand that. So, all right, great. And are there any other questions?
Yeah, I guess out of curiosity, what's the rationale for the 2/3 of the backyard being crushed stone?
Well, I mean, eventually we're looking at providing or placing an ADU in the rear of the property. So, kind of keeping it simple at the beginning, but that's our goal in the future.
Commissioner Say, do you have any? All right. So do we have any members of the public who would like to speak about this item? If any emails?
We do have one public comment email that was submitted, so I'll go ahead and read that now. This is from Mako and Michelle Hayashi at 1120 Bernal Avenue. As mentioned in our June 26th email below, we are concerned that the proposed design for 1116 Bernal Avenue intrudes on our privacy. The proposed solution has been to plant some cypress trees between our homes. This isn't an acceptable solution. A row of enormous trees towering over our home would cast a shadow on our driveway, our house, and into our home, and could block the sunlight powering our solar panels. In fact, the prior homeowners planted cypress trees along the front portion of the property. You can see the shadows that the trees are casting on our property. This person included some photos, but unfortunately we can't display those from our computer here. We're also concerned about the root damage. As we mentioned at the last hearing a few years ago, we had to bring our house down to fix the foundation because the roots of the trees grew through the driveway and into our house, damaging our foundation and plumbing. We ask that the homeowners find other ways to bring light into the home rather than installing numerous windows overlooking our one-story home rather than planting large trees. Please also note how close the house is to our house in photos attached to our previous email. We have exchanged a few emails with the architect, but have not yet been able to resolve this issue.
Thank you. Are there any other comments?
There's a hand raised. Sorry, Ruben, could you let me know again who sent that last email?
That was from Mako and Michelle Hayashi. She also goes by Michelle Yang.
Okay. We do have a hand raised from Michelle Yang, but Ms. Yang, since the email was just read into the record, we will just be taking that email on its own.
Okay, great. Thank you. And nothing else, then I'm going to close the public hearing. So who would like to go?
I like this design. I liked it before. And I think that the changes that Jesse made are good and they add value to it. You know, this is in an area where houses are close and setbacks are close. And, you know, I'm sorry that you're going to get a second story house next to you, but that's pretty much what's happening in every neighborhood right now. So I think that they've kept within their envelope the way they're supposed to, and I would like to see this project get approved.
Commissioner Say?
Yeah, I agree with Commissioner Schmidt's comments. I just wanted to also add about those side facing windows. They all seem to be fairly small. They're all in private spaces, bathrooms and bedrooms. Probably not a big public space with a large window where a group of people would be looking out. So in terms of assuring the neighbor some privacy, that I doubt there'll be a lot of people standing at the windows looking that way often. And I too appreciate the changes to the windows, especially on that one elevation, so that it looks a little bit less apartment-like and more like a residence, and a very beautiful design. And unless there are other further comments, I would move this to approval for the conditions of the staff report. Unless
I have to make a comment.
comments. Okay, sorry, I'll take that back.
Actually, I also really appreciate the changes, the variation on the windows and the double doors instead of the one big door on the garage. And I think you really made an effort. And also the house is set back fairly far. So there's just looking at from the street side, looking at the house, the home on the left, I think there's a driveway in between that belongs to them. Then there's, I think 7 feet or something like that. And then 6 or 7 feet. And then the house. So there's, I mean, that's more than a lot of us have between homes, which is a generous spacing. And I think they've really done a nice job. I mean, I think that the effort with the landscaping will be worth it. I sure wouldn't go treeless on there. I don't think that would be a big mistake that everybody would regret. So if they're planted right, the roots shouldn't be a problem, I don't think. So I could move to approve it, or did I swipe that from you? All right, I'm going to move to approve this item.
I'll second it.
Commissioner Camerado.
Aye.
Commissioner Haran,
Aye.
Commissioner Schmidt,
Aye.
Commissioner Shores,
Aye.
Commissioner Say,
Aye.
Vice Chair Lowenthal.
Aye.
And Chair Fox.
Aye. So wait a minute, I have to do my thing. An action by Planning Commission is appealable to the City Council within 10 days of Planning Commission's action. The Planning Commission's action has not been appealed or called up for review by the City Council by 5 p.m. on the 10th day, the action becomes final. In order to be effective, appeals must be in writing and must be accompanied by an appeal fee of $784, which includes noticing cost. Congratulations. The next item is 9D 1431 Cappuccino Avenue. If you are the applicant and are attending via Zoom, please raise your hand so that we may be prepared for you to speak at the appropriate time. If possible, we ask that you also turn on your video at that time. Were any commissioners not able to visit the project site, or do any commissioners wish to know any ex parte communications regarding this project? Nope. Nope. We have no recusals. Let the record show that all commissioners have visited the project site. Can we hear the staff report, please?
Yes, this is an application for design review amendment for as-built changes to a previously approved new 2-story single-unit dwelling and detached garage at 1431 Cappuccino Avenue, zoned R1. The design review application for this project was approved by the Planning Commission on May 24th, 2021. Construction of the project is nearing completion, and it was brought to the planning staff's attention that the project under construction includes several changes to plans. Planning staff contacted the owner and builder regarding this issue, and the applicant submitted this application for design review amendment. The requested as-built changes are summarized on pages 1 and 2 of your staff report. The applicant submitted an explanation letter dated July 5th with detailed information and photos about the as-built changes. I believe the applicant is also in attendance and can answer any questions you may have. Suggested findings for amendment to design review are found on page 3 of the staff report. And that concludes my summary of the staff report. I'd be happy to take questions of staff if you have any.
So are there any questions of staff?
I have one.
Commissioner Schmidt.
So in the prior approval minutes, it was noted that we would be receiving an FYI regarding changes to windows, et cetera. Did we ever get that FYI?
Let me check real quick to see if one was prepared for that. Yes, let me just pull it up here real quick. This came before you on June 14th, 2021.
I want to know.
Right, any other questions? Actually, I do have a related question. So, and the FYI is that then, so some of the items in the FYI were done properly and some weren't?
That information I unfortunately we don't have the
Okay.
planner that worked on the here.
Okay. Commissioner Say?
Yeah, am I correct in assuming that this project was approved prior to the design review acknowledgement form being?
Yeah, the
Correct.
design review, sorry, the new form that we're using, we just started implementing just 2 or 3 months ago. So this was quite a bit before that time.
Thank you.
Could I clarify at what stage of the project were the deviations noted? Was it already completed or partially completed?
Yes, my understanding is that these are as-built changes, so we were called out for the final inspection, I believe, and that's when the changes were noticed.
All right, any other questions? Okay. All right, so if you are the applicant and are attending the meeting via Zoom, please raise your hand. Oops, sorry, I'm going to open the public hearing. Would the applicant please come forward and state your name and anything else you'd like us to know?
Hi, my name is Johnny. I'm the contractor of 1431 Cappuccino.
Hi, my name is Yao Yang, and I'm the owner representative.
So we make a couple change of the design. The first main thing is the window. We changed it to the clear glass instead of the gridding pattern because we for the siding we had a lot of vertical trim, so we trying to think that's too busy for the pattern. So that's why we changed it to a clear glass. And some of the size of the window we change it because the manufacturer doesn't make that big of size, so we had to reduce the size of the windows. Also in the front, we got to close the soffit because there's the open soffit. There's a lot of bird that they coming inside the house, so we plan to close everything. And the entry, we changed the entry door to a 7-panel instead of 6-panel, and we got to make an 18-inch width instead of 15-inch width because the manufacturer they only have 12 and 18, so we pick 18 inches. And the ledge stone, we still got to use the same similar stone, but we just change to lighter color. Just looks brighter to the house. Also, we had another gable in south and north of the roof because we had a structural beam that's come up, extend up to the roof. So that's why we hadn't either able to cover it. And the last thing is the light in the front. We changed the light in the left side to move to the right side. So we had more light in the porch. That's it.
Could I just ask, I'm still a little confused. So when you initially came forward, I wasn't on here, so I don't know. But I'm trying to figure out what was the FYI for before? What did you have permission to do?
Actually, we brought the plan with the previous owner. So we are not the original designer.
Oh,
So everything was approval. We brought the plan and then they already starting demo the house. We bought the plan, but the construction is already started.
Chair Puff, if I can provide a little bit more clarification to the FYI. That FYI was brought back to show smaller second floor windows in the stairway. That was one of the requested changes by the planning commission, and also changing the termination vent for the fireplace. So what they're proposing with this application does not conflict with that FYI. What was approved.
okay, got it. So, yes, Commissioner.
I ask, who's the manufacturer of the windows that you actually installed?
We have used Milka.
Hilgard.
Yeah.
The original approval was for Anderson.
Yes.
So do Anderson make the right size windows?
I don't think so. We checked it and then Milka, they pretty much, because the casement is too heavy, so that's why they don't make that size. So most of the houses, all the windows accessible is casement.
Commissioner Audrey, Commissioner Say, thinking about it?
Yeah, sorry, I blanked out.
Yeah.
It's not a question.
Okay, my question is, so. But yeah, the windows are completely different size than the door, like they go up much further and so.
They're the same height, they just redo the size, the bottom to the top. And some of them, they just redo the size, the width.
Right, well, I guess I'm talking about the door change and the window change.
Mhm.
So the result is that there's quite a discrepancy. I mean, when you look at the house, the windows terminate higher than in the doors.
Yeah, the original plan is 90-inch high.
Yeah,
We pick it 84 because they don't make 90 inches.
okay.
So it's not standard.
And the choice of the changing the stone was because you felt that the original material didn't look as good as.
Yes, and another main reason is we try to get it, we do the chimney first, because we need to get the chimney done to the roof. But at that time, they don't have enough stock for the less long.
Okay. All right, Commissioner
Oh,
Say.
quick question. Yeah, on the soffit over the front porch
Mhm.
is, so have you filled in a flat ceiling now?
Yeah,
in That.
Yeah.
Front porch area?
Mhm.
And what height is that?
there's 96 inches.
Okay.
It's a little bit more high than 90.
Okay, thank you.
When you guys bought the project
Mhm.
from the original contractor, were the windows already ordered by that contractor or you?
No.
No, you ordered them. Okay.
Any more? Okay, and do we have any? Oh, wait. I guess I'm gonna ask if we have any public members of the public who have comment. Yes.
There were no public comment emails submitted for this project.
There's 16 attendees on Zoom, but no hands are raised.
Okay, guess I'm gonna close the public hearing. Commissioners?
think most of the changes seem fine. At least, I think the overall look of the house looks pretty good. And the work done, fine. I'm stuck on the windows. Changing out the grid and making that decision is actually a big deal. That is something you should have come back and asked permission to do. Because I'm not inclined to approve this without the grids. And so there's gonna have to be a solution come up with to make that happen. What it does is it takes away from some of the detail that we look for in the houses in this neighborhood. And the fact that you chose not to do it, even though that's something we approved, I'm not likely wanting to let go of. The other changes and the sizes, those things happen. We do get that. And we do get that supply chain has made things difficult. But the grids, not so much. The fact that you got windows meant that you could get windows and the grids would have been available too. So I think that I can't support, I can support the other changes, but I can't support the change without the gridded windows. Thank you.
Commissioner Camerado.
So I get pretty conflicted on this. We've had other projects that have come before us. An example is, I think there was one up on Benito that actually the house didn't look so bad without the grid. One of the things that I think helped me determine if it, between the difference of grids and no grids, was that applicant came back with some of the potential applications of what a grid would look like. Because I think you can kind of, let's just say, glue on the grid,
Yeah, they call it snap.
glue on a grid and see how that would look. I think I would need to see that. I would need to see what that actually physically looks like to make a determination if I think it looks worse or better than what is actually there. But I agree with Commissioner Schmid. I mean, I think the windows are a big deal. I actually think the front door is kind of a big deal. I don't really particularly like the front door. I like the door that was originally designed for the project. I can see letting go of the other items that have come before us, but I'd like to see what the grids will actually look like on that window before I can make a determination of the windows.
Sorry.
One thing that I noticed looking at the house is that the trim around the windows are, let's see, I'll say it the other way around. The batten on the walls are proud of the trim around the windows. So there's a strange shadow effect that's happening as you look at the windows. And I think that ideally you would have the trim be proud of the batten. And it's a nice cleaner detail, like you're kind of capping everything off. Instead, now it kind of looks like the trim is set back and then the battens are applied afterwards. So that detail wasn't called, I mean, I guess that wasn't something that was, I mean, that would be traditionally how you would build this. And so it wasn't detailed out in the original design. Though I think now in building it out, that's what's happened. And that bothers me more than even the grids on the windows. I feel like we've seen other projects, like Commissioner Camerado said, that have come back to us and at this time, and we've explored options to add grids back in. In the end, and at least in that particular case, it seemed like it was a lot of effort for really not much improvement. And I'm not a fan of taped on, glued on grids as well. Not to say that you have an excuse to not include them. It is something to address here, and the other commissioners have their thoughts as well. But with the way the windows are now, I feel like at least a front door style also kind of works with the fact that the windows have no grids. But unfortunately, you've kind of taken all the charm out of the design of the house. And some of that trim detail around the windows seems like a workmanship issue. It just doesn't seem like the house is done well. It's not built quality. And that's something that I would suggest you take a look at. The fact that they're painted gray as well kind of makes them recede, and so that almost exacerbates the problem. They're gray against the white battens, and it's not a nice solution. One thing I feel like that still can be done is the trim detail over the original open cross beams at the front porch. You could still apply them as a trim detail on the face of your soffit. Right now, I think you've carried out the board and batten detail again. It's just too much of that look, and there's no variety and just not a lot of charm. And it'd be nice if you can consider some things to add some more design detail back into the house that's been stripped in the process of construction.
But the trim is a original approval.
I'm sorry that the public hearing has been closed,
Sorry.
so you need to reopen it. It's, if
Um,
you'd like to.
The width of the trim is fine. I was just calling out that if you look at it, you'll notice, if you drive by and take a look again, all the batten is proud of the trim, and it's not a normal construction detail. And that's not one we would typically challenge even when we review a project with this style, because that's just not the way it would be built. And it's very noticeable in the fact that they're painted gray really does exaggerate it too.
It's tough. I mean, unfortunately, I agree with my fellow commissioners, and actually, the front porch roof bothers me as well. I think the truss was a nice detail, and I think to the charm point, and the new one is very basic looking. So I also find an issue with the changed front roof truss.
Yeah, I definitely agree with my fellow commissioners. The windows are a very, very noticeable change. And I'm glad that you brought up the different gable end inside the porch, because I also think that's a very important feature to the front of the house. I understand the issue with birds, but I think there's probably a solution here that either solves the birds or adds more detail back to that part of the home. It's right in the center, right over where everyone enters the home. Those are the two standouts. Everything else I definitely understand.
So I have similar comments. I really like the closed eave. I thought it looked really cool, but I don't see any reason why you can't add in the detail that was there before. That would be really nice. What's bothering me almost more than the grids is the different levels, and I don't even build, I also noticed the depth that my fellow commissioners brought up about the molding. And it also, at least on my house, I have an old house, but where I think it's called the brick molding goes around, and you would be starting your stonework. I feel like the trim usually goes and ends at it finishes off at the two sides finish at the brick molding, and then maybe there's a silver or something. I don't know. Something is not looking quite right, and the level, and also I don't know if it's just primer, strange. But I also wanted to add, I don't know that the color on the chimney is necessarily a good choice of a color. It kind of glows, the light color that you used. And you haven't gone on and done the rest of it yet, but I kind of found it not complimentary of the rest of the house. I don't know what my fellow commissioners, if they agree or don't, but that kind of stood out for me as not necessarily a subtle change. It was pretty abrupt. So I think mainly that for me, it's the windows looking ending taller than this door. And I don't know if there's anything that can be retrofitted after the fact to make the door, I don't know, something, clear story or something to make it higher. It just feels like it's not prominent enough because it's been squished down. Those are just my comments. So I don't know what we do with this. What do we do with this one? So,
Well, we're looking for a motion. It sounds like possibly a motion to continue and come back with some solutions to some of the as-built changes that have been mentioned this evening, at least the ones that have you've expressed concerns about.
So I'll make that motion that we continue this and the applicant come back with some better solutions to help us deal with the changes that have been made.
I'd like to just say one thing, maybe that the applicant can look at maybe what a glass front door would possibly look like. That, or I don't know if that would make it look too glassy with the windows and everything else, but something's missing on that front door. And I think it needs, maybe like you said, a clear story or something needs to happen there so that it fits in line with the other windows on either side. It's just a little off. So I agree.
Second the motion.
Oh, sorry, I was just gonna comment. one more thing. Just, Chair Foff was bringing up the stone cladding on the fire chimney. And I didn't go look and see if the wainscoting was done yet.
It's not.
It's not.
No.
So from my experience with the stone cladding, I feel like that what's been selected, we actually, it's not in our purview to talk about color, actually. I think that we can,
Sorry.
you can, I think we can make comments, but I think that you're allowed to use whatever color you like. But I think that material is better utilized on an interior application, fireplace, interior fireplace surround, tile in a bathroom, things like that. I think the scale of it is really small. And what we see in your on your cover sheet here is the originally proposed ledger stone veneer, which is like an exterior type ledger stone. And I would highly recommend you consider something a larger scale stone to clad the wainscoting around the house to ground the house and not continue with that really small, fine mosaic essentially that is on the chimney. Not necessarily saying you need to replace what's on the chimney, but just think carefully about what's going on the wainscoting. Should match more what's been approved.
That's a really good comment. I agree. Yeah, the scale. Yeah,
Scale, I
the
think.
scale issue. Okay, so then I think we have a motion and a second.
Commissioner Camerado,
Aye.
Commissioner Haran,
Aye.
Commissioner Schmidt,
Aye.
Commissioner Shores,
Aye.
Commissioner Say,
Aye.
Vice Chair Lowenthal,
Aye.
Chair Pfaff.
Aye.
So the motion to continue this application passes 7-0.
And that's not appealable, right?
That's correct.
It's not appealable. Got that right. Okay, thank you very much.
Thank you. Thank you.
Thank you. Okay, that brings us to, oh, I have to go. So we're on 9E, 123 to 135 Primrose Road, and I'm going to leave the room. And my colleague is going to take over. Does he need to move here or can he?
You can do it there.
Okay, we're on to item 9E, 123 to 135 Primrose Road. If you are the applicant and are attending the meeting via Zoom, please raise your hand so that we may be prepared for you to speak at the appropriate time. If possible, we ask that you also turn on your video at that time. Were any commissioners not able to visit the project site, or do any commissioners wish to note any ex parte communications regarding this project? Seeing none, we can move on. Let the record note that all commissioners present have visited the project site. Can we hear the staff report, please?
Yes, this application is for design review, special permit for building height and a lot combination for a new 4-story, 14-unit, multi-unit residential apartment building with at-grade parking. The existing building at 123 Primrose Road is proposed to be demolished, and that lot would be combined with Lot 2B, and which is the unpaved parking lot next door. The proposed residential apartment building would have parking and a lobby on the ground floor, 14 residential units in the 3 stories above the garage, and a rooftop terrace. Staff would note that affordable below market rate units are not required and there are no market rate units proposed for this, or I'm sorry, no below market rate units proposed for the project. Retail space is also allowed but not required on the ground floor in the HMU zoning district. The zoning code allows a special permit request for architectural features which do not extend more than 10 feet above the maximum height and do not occupy more than 10% of the roof area. The applicant is requesting a special permit for the 2 stair enclosures designed as features of the building facade and for the rooftop trellis, which is designed to provide architectural interest to the common open rooftop area. The total percentage of the roof area for these 3 features is 9.9%, or 10% was the maximum allowed. California state law AB 2097 prohibits public agencies from imposing minimum automobile parking requirements on residential, commercial, and industrial projects located within a half-mile of public transit. Subject property is located within a half-mile of the Burlingame Caltrain station. And the applicant has submitted an AB 2097 application letter dated April 13th, 2023, to provide a total of 16 at-grade parking spaces where 18 parking spaces would be required by code. I do need to note there is one error in the staff report. There are no landscaping standards for multi-unit apartments in the HMU zoning district. And the staff report mistakenly lists 2 boxleaf azalea trees where the landscape plans show there are 5 of this species of trees. So there will be a total of 11 landscape trees planted on the site, as well as 2 new street trees. The staff report attachments include the class 32 categorical exemption memo prepared by David J. Powers, and that consultants is in attendance via Zoom this evening to answer any questions that the commission might have. Suggested findings for design review, special permit, and for the tentative parcel map are included in the staff report, and I can take questions of staff at this time.
Thank you. Any questions for staff? Okay, seeing none, I'm going to open the public hearing. Would the applicant please come forward and state your name and anything else you would like to add about your project?
So Ms. Nehru, we do have your slides prepared. So when you are ready, we can show those and let me know when you want to advance to the next slide.
Sure. Good evening, commissioners. I'm Abha Nehru. I'm architect with Carrasco and Associates. Our planner in her presentation has described the project quite well. I'll do a short presentation to cover a few additional items. So if you could open up our slide. Slide 2. The next slide. So a project site falls under the downtown specific plan, highlighted here in red outline. The next slide. This map shows the land use within the downtown specific plan. The site is within the Harvard mixed use area shown in orange color, and it is surrounded by Bayswater area shown in yellow. Our site is in section marked 21B. Next slide, please. This is an aerial image of the site and shows the surrounding development and use. The site is surrounded by multifamily development along the east and the south side. Towards the west is the United Methodist Church property. And across the road, we have St. Catherine Parish and Gymnasium. So it's primarily surrounded by both multifamily and commercial developments. Next slide, please. This project was presented to the Planning Commission at the study session last year. We received some comments and recommendation at the meeting. Based on those, we have updated our plans. The garage entry has been set back by 4 feet to allow for better visibility of the road while exiting the garage. The garage door is specified to be perforated metal, and this garage door shall remain open during the daytime hours. Height of the first floor garage has been reduced by 2 feet. And at the first floor lobby, the corner windows have been added to match the windows at the upper levels. This will enhance the pedestrian experience, and it removes the solid corner we had proposed earlier, where we had the mailboxes previously. Frosted glass guardrails have been specified at all decks to help with screening. At the request of the neighbors, the existing landscape screening at the east property line along the proposed pedestrian path shall be preserved. This extends to approximately 22 feet from the frontage. This current shrub or the landscape screening is magenta cherry. The outline of the neighboring properties has been added to the plan sheets as requested by the Planning Commission previously. And this slide shows the outline in red. Parking layout has been revised to accommodate the code required electrical vehicle parking. And all parking spaces have been designed to be ready for EV parking. We've added a fire pump room on the west side, which is accessible and is shown with red arrows. And this is based on comments received from the fire department. Next slide. This slide represents a typical floor plan. Each apartment has an outdoor deck. These private open spaces are a zoning requirement. The project has proposed recessed decks with full height partition on one side. These reduce the sight angles to the neighbor's court below on the east side. And mature trees and shrubs have been proposed along the east and south property lines for both screening and privacy. Next slide. We have a rooftop terrace, and this is set back from the edges and is partially screened and flanked by the stair towers. And this would not add to any noise level at the pedestrian level because it's at the 4th floor level. So we think that has been mitigated. Next slide, please. The section BB shows the adjacent multifamily residential building and the first floor court area. So mature trees have been proposed along this east property line for privacy and screening. In addition, the recessed decks and frosted guardrails at the decks, along with the trees, would further improve the screening along this property line. The parking area, which is on the first floor, would be screened by the fence and evergreen shrubs along the property line on both east and west side. Section DD shows landscape decks along the west property line, which would provide shading from the sun to the apartments facing the west side. Next slide. This gives an overall view of the project. The exterior facade has stucco with striking accents provided by stone cladding and wood veneer. Frosted glass guardrails at decks provide additional accent, besides providing privacy and functional benefits. Recessed decks that break up the facade are accented with wood veneer cladding on walls, ceiling, and at the deck banding. This brings warm organic feel of wood against the stucco background, creating a visual interest and depth. Overall, the use of wood cladding and stucco in 2 colors creates a harmonious blend of natural and manufactured materials, resulting in a visually appealing facade and a welcome ambience for the new residential building that we have proposed. We would welcome any questions. This is the end of my presentation.
Thank you very much. Commissioners, any questions for the applicant?
So I think I would like to do one clarification. I think the property, the adjacent property to the left of the site is not a multi-unit, but I think it's a condominium complex. And so So I just want to make that clarification that it's not multi-unit, but it is a condo units.
Any other questions for the applicant? Yes, Commissioner Say.
Yeah, I was just curious, how you envision the lobby space being used?
This is primarily going to be a gathering space for the residents and some place they can meet and talk. That's it.
Has there been any thought in getting some type of designated space for the residents to use? It looks quite large for a 14-unit complex,
Yeah,
just to get your mail.
no, we plan to provide some seating for them so they can at least sit and hang out there for some time. And so that's the intent. So it would be a place to meet and greet. The furniture is not being shown.
Thank you.
Any other questions for the applicant? Seeing none. Do we have any members of the public who would wish to speak on this item, or did we receive any public comment email?
We do have one public comment that I would like to read into the record. There was no name provided, but it is dated June 26, 2023. Dear Burlingame Planning Commissioners, my comments relate to agenda item 8C, the condominium project. Actually, that's inaccurate. It is an apartment project. It's not condominiums. But the condominium project at 123 Primrose Road. I'd like to suggest that more attention be paid to creating interest along the 100-foot-long linear frontage on Primrose Road. As presented, the building lacks articulation at street level that could help to distinguish it as the nice residential structure that it wants to be. At over 500 square feet, the mailbox room / lobby seems quite large, while the exterior landscaping outside the windows and front entrance is non-existent given the lack of setback. Would it be possible to devote some of that large interior mailroom area to instead create some landscape space set back from the sidewalk? I think this could help significantly to embellish the street level experience of this building while also creating a more welcoming entrance for the residents. Thank you for your consideration.
There are no public emails submitted.
There are 12 attendees on Zoom. No hands are raised.
Then I'm going to close the public hearing. Commissioners, any comments?
I'd like to piggyback on the person who wrote in. I actually agree that the fact that the building is kind of right on the property line and does not have any softness at the ground level is a valid comment. And I don't disagree that there's the somewhat unplanned space that's there. That I think that something that creates a more indoor-outdoor level there would give some depth to that at the ground level and helps what is, a pretty good sized building right on the property. That's it for me.
I would say that on that ground level, I think we're missing an opportunity here. So this is a pretty highly traffic area with Catherine's there, with a lot of parents coming in and out. And, I think perhaps they're not giving it any commercial space, and I'm not sure that we have to have commercial space, but maybe a small area for coffee or where parents can meet down there. And I think it's a missed opportunity that I would like to see. There's a lot of traffic on this street. I mean, I walk by this site every single day, 2 or 3 times a day, because I live on Cypress. And so a lot of people from San Mateo Park walk through down this way. This is kind of our cut through to downtown. And I think we're missing an opportunity here. So maybe using that lobby area for something else would be nice as well.
Yeah, I mean, it is large. It's 700 square feet, not 500. Quite a big room. And so the public comment received even if it's just landscaping, if they can't convince a coffee shop to take it over. I do think there's a lot of articulation on that Primrose facade, though, maybe not at street level, but in general, it's almost doing too much in my opinion. But other than that, I think the fact that the project is asking for no variances, it seems like a pretty straightforward submission.
I personally would agree with all my commissioners. I do think the comment holds water. Is it enough to sway me in a negative view? I don't think so. I think what Commissioner Horan said is also correct. I think once you look up a little bit, there's a lot of articulation. There's going to be some greenery. It would be great to have a public coffee shop. I don't disagree with that. I don't know if that's something that we can even discuss as part of the motion, but do we have a motion? Anybody?
I'd like to make a motion that we approve this project as submitted in the staff report.
Motion here. Do we have a second?
Just to clarify, that would include approval of the special permit.
Yes.
Second.
We have a motion and a second. Any discussion on the motion?
You can certainly come to the planning division on the second floor at City Hall. We're open between 8 and noon daily for walk-ins. So please feel free to come up and take a look at the plans this week.
Okay, any other discussion? Then may we please have a roll call vote?
Yes, Commissioner Camerado,
Aye.
Commissioner Herring,
Aye.
Commissioner Schmid,
Aye.
Commissioner Shores,
Aye.
Commissioner Say,
Aye.
and Vice Chair Lowenthal.
Aye.
Okay, motion to approve the project passes 6-0-1-0.
Thank you. An action by the planning commission is appealable to the city council within 10 days of the planning commission's action. If the planning commission's action has not been appealed or called up for review by the city council by 5 p.m. on the 10th day, the action becomes final. In order to be effective, appeals must be in writing and must be accompanied by an appeal fee of $784, which includes noticing costs. Thank you very much and congratulations.
We'll wait a moment for Chair Pfaff to.
All right, so moving along, we're going to do item 9F30 Ingold Road. If you're the applicant or attending the meeting via Zoom, please raise your hand so that we may be prepared for you to speak at the appropriate time. I can see they're in the audience. Were any commissioners not able to visit the project site? Or do any commissioners wish to know any ex parte communications? No? Okay, and we have no recusals. Let the record note that all commissioners present have visited the project site. Can we hear the staff report, please?
Yes, before I summarize the staff report, I just wanted to note that there was a minor correction in the in the unit mix table on sheet A-0.0 of the plans. A reduced sheet was, a copy was given to each of you. I know it's a little hard to read, but in terms of the numbers, I'll describe that in a second, but if approved tonight, then that sheet will be incorporated into condition of approval number 1, like that. So the correct number of 1-bedroom units is 188, not 187. The number of junior 1-bedroom units at 32 did not change. So the total number of 1-bedroom and junior 1-bedroom units combined is 220, not 219 as noted in the staff report. So a slight change there. Also, the correct number of two-bedroom units is 78, not 79. As a result, the total number of parking spaces required on site is one less. It's 359, not 360, as noted in the staff report. So these updated numbers will be reflected in my brief presentation. I'll try to make my presentation brief. I know the applicant is also here and they have a presentation to make. This is an application for an amendment to design review for changes to a previously approved mixed-use residential development at 30 Ingold Road, zoned RRMU. An application for design review, density bonus, approval of community bonuses, and vesting tentative parcel map for a new 7-story, 298-unit project at 30 Ingold Road was approved by the Planning Commission in October of 2020. An application for a 2-year extension was approved in September of 2021. A building permit for the project was issued in September of 2022 and construction is underway. This application for an amendment to design review includes a request for several changes to the previously approved project. Elaine Breeze, the applicant representing Summerhill Apartment Communities, submitted a letter dated April 5th, 2023, explaining the proposed changes. BDE Architecture also submitted a supporting list of detailed changes dated April 5th with reference to the plan sheets. In summary, the changes, these changes are proposed. The first is there's an increase in the number of residential units. So a total of 4 additional residential units is proposed, consisting of 2 market rate units and 2 below market rate units. This would increase the total number of residential units from 298 to 302. The 4 additional units would be located in the project's interior courtyard and would not increase the footprint of the building. This would be accomplished by replacing 8 previously approved 2-bedroom units on floors 3 through 6 with 12 1-bedroom units. So 1 additional unit being added on each of the 4 floors. There are also some changes to the project's unit mix and unit designs. In addition to increasing the number of units, the applicant is proposing to convert 10 1-bedroom units to 10 2-bedroom units and 4 2-bedroom units to 3-bedroom units on floors 3 through 6. In total, there would be 220 1-bedroom units, 78 2-bedroom units, and 4 3-bedroom units. 45 of the units would be below market rate. The original approval included 43 below market rate units. On other changes, as there's a slight increase in the size of the private decks on the inside corner units. None of these proposed changes would impact the exterior facade, with the exception of the changes to the decks. Off-street parking and bicycle parking is also being increased to reflect the increase in the number of units. So there would be a total of 359 spaces required and 360 spaces are provided on site. The number of bicycle spaces are being increased from 165 to 167. Suggested findings for design review amendment are found on page 8 of the staff report. We also had ICF, which is the consulting firm that did the environmental review, take a look at the increase in the number of units. They prepared a supplemental environmental analysis to assess the potential changes to the environmental document that was prepared. We had prepared a class 32 categorical exemption, and it was determined after their analysis that the proposed revisions would not change the conclusions in that exemption. So no further review is needed in terms of environmental review. I can now turn it over to the applicant, or I can answer questions if you have of staff. Either way.
Any questions? Nope. Okay, let's go.
Good evening, Planning Commission. My name is Elaine Breeze. I'm with Summerhill Apartment Community, Senior Vice President of Development. And for those of you that are not familiar with Summerhill, we're a privately owned local developer specializing in multifamily and mixed-use apartment communities. And we're excited to continue to work here in the city of Burlingame and are looking forward to moving forward with our 30 Ingold mixed-use project. So as outlined in the staff report, we are requesting the commission's approval of the addition of 4 units, 2 market rate and 2 below market rate, as well as an enhanced unit mix to our previously approved project. And by making the building design more efficient, we're able to accomplish this within the building, the approved building's envelope. If you could go to the next slide, please. And it will, this is a lot of detail, but essentially it's, we're staying within the existing building envelope and we're still consistent with all the city's requirements as including parking as illustrated here. And we're still providing the city a new park, and we are now providing 45 low-income deed-restricted units as part of the project. Tonight, I have with me our project architect, Brenna Weaver of BDE Architects, who will briefly review the proposed changes. And then, of course, we're both available for any questions that you might have. Thank you.
Thanks, Elaine. If you could go to the next slide. As Elaine mentioned, I'm Brenna with BDE Architecture. I'm going to walk you through some of the revisions. So this first floor, you can see is primarily parking. And if you look in the upper left-hand corner, you'll see that we added some slider parking system to the garage. And so, as you can see, these spaces are tandem spaces. But what the slider does is it allows the tenant to be able to access their parking stall as if they're standard stalls. So you're not dependent on another person in order to access your parking space. And so in the drawings, the X indicates the empty stall, and then there's essentially a pallet slider on either side that is able to move side to side and provide access to that rear space. If you could go to the next slide, please. You'll see again in the upper left corner, we have the same slider system that we had on floor 1. And then additionally, you can see in the upper left-hand corner, as well as on the right-hand side, that we have some additional tandem parking. I should note that the slider system is helping us meet the 1-to-1 parking required for our 1 bedrooms. And I want to point out that those tandem parking stalls that we do have will be for our 2 or 3 bedroom units. You can go ahead to the next slide, please. Here is floor 3, where we have primarily residential units. And I'm going to point out some of the unit changes that were described previously. So in the lower left-hand corner, we have a revised B8 unit. It was previously a 1-bedroom unit, and it's now going to be a 2-bedroom. We've done the same thing on the lower right-hand side, unit B7. Again, this was previously a 1-bedroom, and it's now a 2-bedroom. And we were able to add more space to those units and make them 2 bedrooms because we just refined our coordination with consultants and we eliminated some back house space from the corridor and gave it back to the units. So this change occurs on all residential floors 3 through 7. Also on the upper right-hand side, we revised the corner unit to be from a 2-bedroom to be a 3-bedroom based on the size of that unit. Again, this occurred through 6. It doesn't occur on floor 7 because the building steps back and there's no unit there. In the center of the building, the portion of the building between the 2 courtyards, this is where we have revised 2 2-bedrooms to now be 3 1-bedrooms. That occurs on floors 3 through 6, and then level 7 stays the same with the 2 2-bedrooms. And then finally, another change we made is revising the balconies. And so this occurs at all our corner units. So you can see at the corners of all the courtyards, all 3 courtyards, there's little bubbles around those balconies. We have made them more usable and changed the configuration slightly. And again, this occurs on all floors 3 through 7. If we go to the next slide. Here are the elevations on Ingold and Rollins. We do not have any elevational changes here. Again, we were trying to make all changes interior to the building and not change the approved exterior. On the next slide, you will see on the north elevation that faces the adjacent parcel, there are some minor changes. These are due to the balconies. So if you look on the right-hand side, the facade of the building that is pushed back at the rear of the courtyard, the balconies have changed slightly. This change will be, it's a very slight change. The balcony railing is clad in the same material as the stucco around it, so it's nearly imperceptible from what was there before. And if you go to the next slide, that's it. We're happy to answer your questions.
questions?
So I wasn't here when this was approved first time, so I had a question about the commercial space on the first floor. I noticed that on the second floor, above that area is also commercial space. Is it intended for that to just be extra space, or is it intended that a renter there could use the second floor space and like have stairs going up like with
Yeah, it is intended that is a, could be used as a second story space if possible. It's a high space.
right? Okay, so it's like functional second story space. Okay, thank you.
I have no questions, so I'll open it to the public. So we have any members of the public who would like to speak? Or do we receive the? Okay.
We've received no public comment emails.
There's 3 attendees on Zoom and no hands are raised.
So then I'm going to close the public hearing. Colleagues think.
Thank you for the very nice presentation. I think a very creative reuse of existing space and some very positive improvements as a result of that. Very nice.
Yeah, I agree. There's really no impact to us on the outside. It's all interior improvement and efficiencies. And I don't see any reason why we shouldn't support this.
All right. If there are no others, then we
Make a motion that we approve as outlined in the staff report.
second that.
Excuse me. Commissioner Camerado,
Aye.
Commissioner Haran,
Aye.
Commissioner Schmidt,
Aye.
Commissioner Shores,
Aye.
Commissioner Say,
Aye.
Vice Chair Lowenthal,
Aye.
Chair Pfaff.
Aye.
Motion to approve passes 7-0. Oh, yeah,
Commissioner Pfaff, if you,
it is appealable, so can't
just
go just yet.
early.
Okay, sorry. Sorry, one more thing. An action by the planning commission is, yes, is appealable to the city council within 10 days of the planning commission actions. If planning commission's action has not been appealed or called up for review by the city council by 5 p.m. on the 10th day, the action becomes final. In order to be effective, appeals must be in writing and must be accompanied by an appeal fee of $784, which includes noticing costs. Congratulations.
Thank you.
All right, we're on to agenda item 9G, 250 California Drive. If you are the applicant and are attending the meeting via Zoom, please raise your hand so that we may be prepared for you to speak at the appropriate time. If possible, we ask that you also turn on your video at that time. Were any commissioners not able to visit the project site, or do any commissioners wish to note any ex parte communications regarding this project? Seeing none, let the record note that all commissioners present have visited the project site. Can we hear a staff report, please?
Yes, this is an application for a conditional use permit for an office use on the ground floor of an existing commercial building at 250 California Drive, zoned CAR. Just as a background, an application for commercial design review and conditional permits for office use in a portion of the ground floor and building height for the new mixed-use office building was approved originally by the Planning Commission on March 12, 2018. This construction project was recently completed and is currently undergoing its final inspections with the various city division. An application for a conditional use permit to allow non-automobile related retail, personal service, and business service uses on the ground floor of the building was approved by the commission in October of 2019. This mixed-use building was originally approved with 5,387 square feet of retail space on the ground floor and 28,458 square feet of office space. So as I mentioned before, a portion of the ground floor, roughly 720 square feet, was originally approved as office space, and that area would be occupied by the Burlingame Historical Society. With this application, the applicant is proposing to use the 5,387 square feet of commercial space on the ground floor as office use rather than the non-automobile related retail, personal service, and business service uses permitted in 2019. The site is located within the CAR or California Drive Auto Row District, which has long been known as Burlingame's Auto Row. Certain uses are allowed by right in the CAR district, including retail sales of automobile parts and accessories, retail sales and service of automobiles, and automobile sales. The CAR district also allows government agencies and multi-family residential and office uses above the first floor as permitted uses. So planning staff would note that an office use on the ground floor is permitted by right in the surrounding downtown districts, including BMU, CAC, DAC, and MMU. It's also allowed by right in the BAC and HMU district. However, it has to be behind a 30-foot depth of commercial space. Over the years, there have been many non-automobile related businesses approved on this. With the zoning code update in 2021, the parking ratio for office uses located within the downtown zones changed from 1 to 300 to 1 to 400. Therefore, the proposed change in use from from retail office does not require any additional on-site parking spaces. Suggested findings for a conditional use permit are found on page 3 of the staff report. That concludes my summary. I believe the applicant is either here or online. We can answer also questions about the project.
And just to note for the record, Chair Pfaff has exited the building or exited the room. She has recused from this item as noted previously in the agenda. Thank you.
Thank you. Do we have any questions for staff? No questions for staff. Okay, I'm going to open the public hearing. Would the applicant please come forward and state your name and anything else you'd like to add about your project?
Mr. Gabarra will be joining us, and I do have your slides ready, so you can just let me know how you would like to advance them.
I don't think I need any slides. I was just going to speak a little bit.
Okay.
Good evening. Thank you so much for having me. My name's Ryan Gabarra, and I'm the owner of 250 California Drive. As I mentioned in my letter to the commission, we are seeking an office use on part of the ground floor at 250 California Drive. Part of the ground floor is already approved for an office use, as is the ground floor in the immediately adjacent building, as well as many other surrounding buildings as mentioned by Ruben in the staff report. Our request is not only consistent with the surrounding uses, but is also consistent with the current and past demand we have seen for the ground floor at 250 California. From the beginning, we have had inquiries for office use on the ground floor and have not had any interest in the retail use. The realities of the size of this space for office are such that we need to build out this space speculatively in order to lease it. Tenants in this size range are typically only looking 90 days before they need to occupy space. Yet the realities of receiving a CUP, creating construction drawings, obtaining a building permit, and constructing the space mean that our space is perpetually over a year out and therefore not leasable. As such, I'm in the front of you tonight requesting the CUP for office use on the ground floor so that we may build out the space and activate the ground floor at 250 California. Thank you, and I'm happy to answer any questions that you guys have.
Thank you. Do we have any questions for the applicant? Seeing none. Do we have any members of the public who wish to speak on this item, or do we receive any public comment email?
We received no public comment emails.
There are 3 attendees, but no hands are raised.
Okay, then I'm going to close the public hearing. Commissioners, any comments?
I'll go. I wouldn't necessarily want office on a ground floor if it were a traditional closed off office. But when you go by the other property on Lorton Avenue next to the Mykonos restaurant that they did, and they kind of did a similar lobby downstairs. This isn't about a closed off office space, stay away. It's actually a very inviting and engaging space that can be used as a co-working and public space. So I think that what they're proposing here is in line with that, and you're already seeing it. And I think it would be an excellent use of this space at 250 California. So I'm in full support of this project.
Commissioner Camarado?
Yeah, so it was so funny because my son and I were driving down California Drive and I think we were looking at the building and like, he goes, it's such a pretty building. And I was like, yeah, it's unfortunate that our economy has kind of hit the commercial world the way it has. So I am in favor of this because I think it'll just revitalize that area. And again, as Commissioner Schmidt has mentioned, I think it's nicely done. And I think it'll activate more people walking in and out and some of the other things we have.
Commissioner Say?
Yes, I agree with my fellow commissioners. I also wanted to add that I really appreciated the interiors concept package that was supplied to us, which really helps us to imagine and visualize how the space will be used, and it's very beautifully designed. Look forward to seeing it soon.
Yeah, I would just add that, it's a shame that a retail or restaurant can't go in there. I assume they've done their due diligence. What's worse would be a vacant space, in my opinion. So having a really nice, as Commissioner Schmidt and Commissioner Camarado said, having a nice office inviting space, similar to the one next to Mykonos is lovely. So I'm very much in favor. And I applaud the owner and the developer for seeing that and not wanting a vacant space. I think that's good for everybody. So if I don't see any other comments, I'll make a motion to approve based on the staff report.
I'll second that motion.
Okay, so we'll have a roll call vote.
Yes, Commissioner Camarado,
Aye.
Commissioner Haram,
Aye.
Commissioner Schmidt,
Aye.
Commissioner Shores,
Aye.
Commissioner Say,
Aye.
Vice Chair Lowenthal.
Aye.
Motion approved, 6010. Motion is appealed.
Okay, great. And action by the planning commission is appealable to the city council within 10 days of the planning commission's action. If the planning commission's action has not been appealed or called up for review by the city council by 5:00 PM on the 10th day, the action becomes final. In order to be effective, appeals must be in writing and must be accompanied by an appeal fee of $784, which includes noticing costs. Welcome back to our chair.
We should have a recording that says language, just press a button. Easier.
Okay. Right. Now we're on to we're on design review study items. So we are going to we're going to learn about item 10A, 1826 Loyola Ave. If you are the applicant and are attending the meeting via Zoom, please raise your hand so that we may be prepared for you to speak at the appropriate time. If possible, we ask for you to also turn on your video at that time. For any commissioners not able to visit the project site, or do any commissioners wish to note any expertise communication regarding this project? And we know. Let the record note that all commissioners present have visited the project site. Can we hear the staff report, please?
Yes, the subject property is an interior lot that contains an existing one-story unit dwelling and an attached garage. The lot slopes upward approximately 8 to 9 feet from the right side of the property to the left side. The applicant proposes both first and second story addition to the existing house. 2 of the existing trees on site are of protected side and are proposed to be removed. And staff notes that these will require an application for a protected tree removal permit, Parks Division. Project includes an attached 849 square foot accessory dwelling unit, which has been reviewed by planning staff and confirmed to meet the criteria for ministerial approval. Finally, the subject is also located within the hillside overlay zone, which states that hillside development shall be designed to preserve existing distant views. And therefore, the commission may request story poles for the proposed project. That concludes the presentation.
Thank you. Are there any questions of staff? Okay, then I'm going to open the public hearing. Would the applicant please come forward and state your name and anything else you'd like us to about your project?
Thank you, staff and commissioners, for your time tonight. I appreciate it. My name is Daniel Foe from Four Architects, and I'll be speaking tonight on behalf of our clients, homeowners of the home, Kay and Patricia Swen. Kay herself is actually a local realtor in the area and strives to actually provide families in the areas with finding homes in the area for their households to grow and build in. Patricia and her spouse are local as well, and they are lawyers and teachers in the area as well for the property. Our goal for this application today is to provide a home for the Swen residents so that they can live here as a multi-generational family for their home to live in, as well as thrive in while in their community. We believe our proposal tonight does that, providing a space for their family to live in, as well as individual spaces so that they can have the opportunity for their own privacy. We're proposing to do this by designating the first floor for Patricia and her spouse to live in, and then downstairs for the ADU for Kay and her family to live in. The existing home itself is built in the 1960s and to about approximately 2,650 for the property. The current home has habitable area on the first floor, and it's currently entirely in that location. On the crawl space downstairs, there's actually a space downstairs on about half the home that's about 6 foot in height. That's unused crawl space in that location. The existing house itself is built with hip roofs, siding on the outside as a finish, and then also comp roof tiles on the top for the project. The context for the site is very important for this project. As Loyola Drive in this location specifically, from Truesdale to Lake Street, site itself is sloped quite significantly in itself. On our subject property itself, from the right side of the property to the left side of the property, we're about 8 to 9 feet. This is significant because our property, as well as the properties adjacent to us, have the same context and situation to the property. The buildings to the east side on our street on Loyola Drive are built with hip and gable roof construction with wood and stucco materials as exterior finishes. We're also going to be relating to that for our project, and we talk a little bit more about that as well. On the west side of our project, on the hillside, we actually have quite significant taller homes, 2-story larger modern buildings with flat roofs, largely in that context that overlook towards the bay itself. There is a Spanish style house as well in that location. That's quite nice as well in that location, but in a more modern style as well. So that's the context of the site. When I was first approached for this project, the homeowner's case, when the first request she gave me was that no matter what you do, when you expand a home for a family, I do not want you to propose a 2nd-story addition for this project. And I took that to heart as content. Our building itself is about 14 foot 9, from first floor plate to the top of the ridge. And context is about 18.22 from the average grade of the curb to the top of the building. So it's quite 1-story building, largely. We're allowed to build up to 30 feet in this site, but we're not going to because we do not want to do that. We want to be sensitive to the site and the neighbors and understand that that's very important for context in this location. Our addition instead will be done on the basement level, downstairs, where we have already quite a tall crawl space in that location. Our plan is to build under there by a couple more feet, make that habitable space so that we could actually occupy that space and use it for our habitable area, similar to many homes actually next to us. This is the same situation that's been done on 1830, 1834, and 1838 Loyola Drive. They have the same exact form in terms of a upper story floor plane and a downstairs that is habitable, with its own separate entryway. So we're doing this exact same thing in terms of context. By doing this, we believe truly that we're building within the actual footprint of the building itself and not impacting our overall site context as well as neighbors or views. As noted again, our building height does not exceed the current building height at all for our context. Our building addition is quite minor in the rear and the front facade of the building. It extends only to where the existing building facades occur for our building, no further. In context, actually, our neighbors on the left and to the right, several homes down, are actually built past our building line in the back facade as well as the front facade. Our house is actually, if you look at Google Maps, is the smallest house in the block in terms of front building facade and back building facade. In context in that location as well. So we feel like our proposal is fitting with the intent of the code, Burlingame zoning ordinance, as well as the hillside zone context for the project with that respect. In relation to how we're designing and developing the front entrance of the house, we also studied our neighbors' buildings and see that a lot of the neighbors' buildings have a front entry that's tucked towards the center of the home and also flanked and bracketed by building structures that come towards the front of the home. They have roofs overhangs in the front of the building. What that creates is a building entrance that is a little bit more muted, a little darker because there's overhang at that location. So it's not as easily identifiable as a front entrance. For our project, we want to keep the same context in terms of building out that inset for the entrance, flanking the two front building portions, but we wanted to do it in a way that also provides a welcoming entrance, which is why we provided an entrance way from the street up to the driveway and also slope the roofs towards the entrance so that there's a little bit more of a interest in that location. Our design is trying to build a contemporary home in this context in contemporary time that's also sensitive to the context and respectful of the neighbors. What we're after for this project in terms of our design application to them. We are not applying for any special permits or variances for this project. Thank you again to staff for actually working with us. We've actually several rounds back and forth, and we were able to incorporate all their feedback into our comments to get to where we are today. This project meets the intent of the design review criteria as established by the Burlingame zoning ordinance, as well as the hillside development criteria. So we feel that that's good. And then as far as the design review criteria, the three items that we talked about that were established by the staff report is that it meets Title 25. The proposed development is in proportion to the size, shape, and the typography of the lot, and it meets the general welfare and health of the neighborhood in that context as well. In terms of hillside development, our proposed project purposely keeps the building maximized cap at the ridge height and building below it. So we're not actually building anything that's really impacting the actual neighbors themselves in terms of views and in terms of overall building mass for the project. That's what we're proposing today, and we appreciate your time and feedback.
Stay right there in case my fellow commissioners have any questions.
Hi there.
Hi.
Thank you. I appreciate the work being done on this project to stay within the overall envelope. I think it's a great use of a hillside and a side-to-side slope to be able to tuck in that floor underneath. So I applaud you for that. But I do have quite a number of questions. So I'm not noticing any overhangs. Is that correct?
That's correct. We're pulling back the overhangs for the project to reduce the size of the building in terms of overall mass.
Okay. And the front door, no overhang over the front door.
That's correct.
Okay. Gutters?
We will have gutters, and we are proposing gutters at the edge of the actual building.
Okay. And the wood, is it gonna, it's a real oak wood
That's what we're,
siding?
that's correct.
Okay.
In context, in this location, there's wood stucco in this neighborhood.
Mhm.
So we're gonna be putting out a smooth, modern stucco finish
Mhm.
and wood as well, but in this context, stained wood.
Okay, and then how do you see that transition from the stucco to the wood? Is the wood gonna be proud of the stucco, in line, a reveal? How do these transitions work?
Thank you for that question. We are gonna be going with the intent of a modern transition. So what we're gonna be doing is building out a reveal for the stucco that overlaps the wood or any sort of illustrations in that area.
Okay. Um. Looking at the 3D, on the right side, where you have your downhill neighbor. You have some rather large windows, and I understand you'll be digging down. What are you doing as far as the fence and any landscaping? Because you got some big windows there, so now you and your neighbor are gonna be really good friends.
Yeah, thank you for that question as well. So in context for the situation, we're going to keep the existing fence height at current height on the property. What's also happening is that when we were out in the field multiple times, we noticed that our neighbors, as well as on both sides actually, didn't, when we were looking over, the only thing that we noticed was a hip roof condition with very little to no fenestrations on their context. So there was actually nothing that we're looking into in that location for his fenestrations. That's why we felt confident in that our second floor, even those are windows, we pulled back on the numbers of windows, but there would be limited privacy issues looking into the adjacent building because they didn't have any fenestrations on that facade.
Good answer. And then have you done any sun studies on how it's gonna come around this house? Cause you got a ton of windows. And to me, it looks like solar heat gain.
Yes, I could address that as well. So the context of the project and building is oriented so that the back of the house is on the east side of the property and the front of the house is on the west side of the property. So one of the biggest issues with this current house, as well as a lot of the homes in this area, is that outside of the morning, they don't get any noontime or afternoon sun. So it becomes very dark and you don't get much daylight, and it just becomes a whole issue in terms of making that home living environment comfortable and nice living. So we understand that in the morning we will get sun, but after the morning time, when the sun does heat up the space, there will be less sun. And as evidenced by the other two facades, there's much more minimal fenestrations. In fact, after about noontime, plus or minus, the sun's not going to be in an area. And that's why we wanted the fenestrations, because we're going to get indirect sun for that space.
I would just encourage some passive sun looks, whether it be some trees or some other ways to try and manage that incoming. I have an east facing window in my office, and before noon I cook. And it takes all evening for me to lose that heat. And I don't have nearly as windows you've got.
Thank you.
So just something to think about there. Thank you.
Appreciate it.
So I was just looking at the renderings and I noticed that, is that a pool that's in the back or a spa or is it a fountain?
It's a fountain.
Understood. Thank you.
Just a clarifying question on the ADU courtyard on the lower level,
Mhm.
indoor space or outdoor space or sliders in front of it? How does
Yes,
that work?
so it is an indoor outdoor space for this project. So it actually opens to the exterior. And then from the inside, you can walk into it through locked doors. So the homeowners are gardeners and they wanted to incorporate indoors and courtyard that they could utilize independent of each other.
Say.
Yeah, just a couple of quick questions. Speaking of the passive side and the daytime of daylight coming in through the windows, at night, I'm speaking about this because there's a house in my neighborhood that has a lot of windows and it's very tall, it's a modern house. And there's light pollution on the other end at night. So just thoughts from your end about lighting up that 2-story glass wall out towards your neighbors at night, or even beyond, maybe even not even your neighbors, but the next street below. Any thoughts on?
Of course. Our property is on the hillside overlay district. And between streets, even amongst our La Jolla Street, the height and difference in terms of drops in building context is quite significant. From the back of our property to the property downside, I don't have an exact number, but the drop is really, because there's actually a space in the center. I believe it might be a city property as well, and the easement at the center. We're talking about drops. Don't quote me on this one. I can get the exact number, but 30, 40, 50 feet highs. So there is no direct privacy components towards the back downstairs neighbors itself, and it continues to drop off in that location. But I do appreciate that comment.
And then just asking about the at the garage door face, I think in your renderings, it's showing that the garage door is set slightly back, so that the pediment area above is proud of the garage door. Is that, I'm just thinking about how that detail will work and how you would operate the garage door, obviously.
Absolutely. So the top part piece is actually a stained wood finish that is established and fixed. The bottom piece is going to be the garage door, that is going to be the upper portion of the project. Our intent as the architect for the project is to build out the door so it operates and also provides a finish surface on the exterior that is and that line right there is to show that there's a line there, but it's actually not that dark. It's supposed to be largely flush. So we could get that corrected.
I'm sorry, so you said it is flush? Thank you.
I also had a question about the garage door. How did you land at that design?
That's correct. So the building itself contains modern roof forms that are inspired by our existing building itself, and also sort of contextually in our neighbors. The fact that they have gable and roof slopes, not that we're matching them, because we're not matching them in terms of architecture. We're going for a more contemporary home. But we started with the 5 to 12 roof slope because that's what we have currently, and we built out from there and built out down from there actually. So a lot of our slopes are much lower. From there, what we did and we studied what would it look like if we went with a flat window and flat garage door in that location. Being that this is a contemporary home, we really like the fact that we're playing up the actual proportion and shape of the home, given that it's a contemporary building. The building itself is made so that the structure, the form itself is part of the architecture in this sense. So we wanted to not mute the architecture by providing flat garage doors or windows on the top floor, and we wanted to accentuate the architecture, so hence the shape of the garage door in the window.
Okay, and then I have a question about the front door. Trying to think, is that the weather side? How will you protect that door? I'm not, everything looks very flash on that side. I'm just wondering, I know how I have a little overhang. I know how that, I'm facing the same way. I know how that works with weather. So I was just wondering do you have any ideas?
In that location, at the moment, we're not proposing anything besides a gutter at the facade. We can look at potentially introducing something that provides a little bit more protection in that area, but at the moment, we are proposing that to be largely flush in that location.
And I can't find it right now, but is this in your planter, is that a magnolia? Is that what I read on your landscape plans? I'm sorry, I can't.
That's
Magnolia, so you just have the one magnolia there. Yep, got it. All right, thank you.
Thank you.
Any other questions? Okay, then I'm going to ask for public, any comments from the public received through email or Zoom? Let me slow down.
Yes, we do have one public comment email. Go ahead and read that now. This is from Robert Ardrey. Thank you for the public hearing notice regarding 1826 Loyola Drive. As neighbors, we greatly appreciate the owner for not increasing the height of their home significantly to minimize the negative impact on surrounding homes' views of the Bay Area. Questions for consideration. Number one, have there been any geotechnical studies submitted to the city on the property as well as the adjacent properties? We ask because the interior of the home is not currently level, raising concerns about the foundation and settling. Number two, how does the eastern facing ADU entry and window format impact the neighbors directly to the east for privacy considerations? And number three, how does the exterior of the building complement the traditional design and styles for the rest of the homes on the street? As one commissioner has asked in other projects, how does this home speak to other homes and those passing through along the street? Thank you.
There's 3 attendees on Zoom, but no hands are raised.
And with that, I'll close the public hearing. So commissioners, anybody want to start?
I'll go. Like I said, I appreciate the use of the space and the use of it three-dimensionally. But I'm not a big fan of the ultra contemporary look. It's too flat for me. The garage door's not doing anything for me. And there are some actually good adaptations up in that neighborhood that are a little bit more modern than the ranch styles that are around there. I'm just not feeling the depth in the elevations. I'm concerned about the large windows and the amount of gain that's going to happen, and the light pollution's a good one too. That back elevation is going to have a lot of light going out of it. So I think that I think you need an overhang at the front entry. I think you need to maybe consider more of how some of the Eichlers or Eichler type projects up in that area work with that center recessed entry. I like it, but there's no overhang, there's no protection. It's just no depth. Similarly, I think without any overhangs in either of the directions, I think it then leaves no shadows. And again, makes for a very flat elevation. I think that more could be done with the wood as a push and pull. Everything being aligned on the same surface, it's gonna be flat. So I'm struggling with that. Some other things to consider. I think that the stucco to wood detail is important. So I would include that for next time. And I think that there's some opportunity for the wood siding to actually be more. I think you've limited it to design within the windows framing. I actually think that the wood siding could be something that goes ground to roof and create a bigger statement and provide more change of material to the exterior stucco. It feels like it's banded instead of having them be design elements. The other thing to keep in mind are the sconces that you're ultimately going to propose. We have an ordinance for that so that we don't get a lot of light pollution. I noticed a few sconces drawn on your elevations, but not a lot of detail to say, ooh, you're totally going to mess it up, or that you're going to get it right. So pick one before you come back so that you then know you comply. That's it for me. Thank you.
So I'm actually intrigued by the design, but I feel like we're missing some elements, and I'm not quite sure what that is. We've had some pretty unique modern designs in this area. I think there's been a few on Martinez. And how they've used the wood with the stucco, I think has been pretty complimentary. So maybe just drive up and down Martinez. I think there's there's a few on that street. I feel as though you have done, I want to say, I think you can take one more crack at this, and I think you'll get it. I feel like you're just missing some of the wood and stucco elements that I think could just tie it in, as Commissioner Schmid has mentioned. The garage door definitely isn't doing it for me. I wish I could love it, but I know what you're trying to do, but it just doesn't fit the neighborhood per se, in my opinion. And I feel that the wood in the windows is acting as kind of an obstruction to the home instead of it being a little more open. It's almost like I want you to take a little bit of the windows from the back, open it up in the front a little bit, and take a little bit less of the windows in the back, because I think there's too much glass in the back. And I do worry a lot about the light from the skylight as well, because I know that light can go up into the air, up into the sky. And so I'm thinking that maybe you want to do maybe consider some frosting on those skylights, if that's an option. But I do worry about the light noise. You have a lot of windows there. So I'd like to see one more crack at this. I do like it. I think it's just, you're almost there, but just not quite. The front door, I think you need to do some sort of pretty element over the front door. I'd love to see something really unique there. I think you're missing an opportunity there to really make a grand entrance for this home. But other than that, I think just one more shot at this.
Yeah, I also am intrigued by the design and appreciate the modernity. And I agree with what my fellow commissioners have stated. I am concerned about the southern and the western exposure of all that wood. And, there's faux wood options that could maybe be considered, but I'm worried about, I actually just had a whole discussion with a garage door vendor today for a project of ours that's in that area with that same orientation garage door. And the garage door vendor is not going to make the door. He says, no, not in wood. It's just going to fail. And so we're trying to figure out how we're going to accomplish the design that we want and the materials we want. But so it's something definitely to think about. I think there's a lot of fun here. I appreciate what you're trying to do geometrically. One part that kind of bothers me at the garage is how the face of the stucco above the garage pediment, if you will, the decorative pediment, is taller than the sides. And that makes that whole area feel heavy, that whole side, and maybe some more balance there. I think that the area of the wall in front of I think is your primary closet, is maybe calling for a little attention. That being the front face of the house, maybe that's where you can play up a bit of your wood or otherwise material element to break up that the overall flatness of the front facade. And I definitely agree that the front door needs some weather protection. Even if it's just for design, that's one thing, but just the everyday use of going inside especially like a rainy winter that we had this past winter. Just imagine being there, trying to find your keys, trying to get yourself in, and just being doused with rain. So, and I am concerned about the light pollution on the back side and the right side towards the downhill neighbors, as well as your neighbor to the right. I don't know if anyone feels like story poles would be needed to show the massing of this, of the right side of the house. And the left side, there's no issue, clearly, but the right side significantly takes up a lot of volume. And I can see that you're kind of skewed from the neighbor to the right. But again, it's just sometimes you don't know until that's up for other neighbors to sense the volume of space that's being proposed. So I'm kind of throwing it out there because I thought that was sort of something we always do up in the hills anyway. And I appreciate staying, below your current ridge height, but still the massing has changed and is quite large. That's my.
I think I agree. I think story poles, I think we have to be safe versus sorry. So I think we should do story poles and allow the neighbors all to know that what's going on there.
I have comments, but I was gonna wait. Want to go? Okay. I pretty much agree with everyone. I think this could be really neat. It's got really a lot of potential, but I am bothered by the garage door for all the reasons mentioned, and I think it's trying too hard. To me, it's trying too hard. There's nothing that wonderful about garage doors generally, sort of like not really a space you want to highlight necessarily. So I think it could be looked at again in a different way. Not there for me, but I just now I've been sketching on top of it, and you seem to be more adverse to having any overhang. The overhang is it just settles it nice. I think it's pushes it down and sort of settles it and makes it more substantial. It has something about it without the overhang that reminds me, and it's not in a good way, of a 70s. There were a lot of cheap 70s homes came up, kind of cheap stucco and just no overhangs. And that's what it looked like to me initially. But some kind of overhang, and and maybe that will also help with the light, the stray light in some way. I don't know. So I think it needs another go over as well. And definitely story poles. I think we have to be consistent in fairness to, even if it's just the one side, I don't know, in fairness to all those around, because we generally ask for them and people don't know what's going on until they see them. So it's full disclosure. Any other comments?
Can I add something real quick for him? I made this comment earlier tonight, but I went by 1304 Mills. It is a modern farmhouse. We're seeing a lot of modern farmhouses with no overhangs. This one has overhangs. It actually looks nice and grounded, and it has a balance of trim to its modernness. And I think it's something to keep in mind, that just because we say we want it modern doesn't mean we strip it all back to its bare minimums. I think we need to be considerate of that, and it doesn't have to be over, but I think that the form, that the roof form has a purpose of trying to provide a bit of a top. And I think that when we stripped it away and all we do is a bare minimum gutter at the edge, we're not protecting our walls, we're not creating the top that we should. And that's what that form is about. And so I would encourage you to go look, because we got some modern farmhouses that don't do it, and I don't think they look very good. And I think they look stripped. And I think understanding the difference between modernizing and stripping is important. And so that would be my encouragement.
Just to add to that, I think it's really important just to think about the homeowner from a day-to-day basis. How are they going to use this space? So we're not just designing the, beautiful architecture just to appreciate in drawing form. It needs to be practical. And I think the homeowner would appreciate some of the comments that are being made to make it a better lifestyle for them on a day-to-day basis.
Other comments?
No, I would also take a look at maybe, I don't know what my fellow commissioners feel about this, but when the house next door to me was being designed, and it's a modern house on Berry Alley, one of the commissioners suggested frosting the light well, which actually was amazing because that light well looks right into kind of my master bedroom because I'm on the first floor. But the frosting of some windows might be a nice difference. And I don't know if that's, architecturally how that would look, but maybe you can kind of play with that and see if there's some sort of frosting that can also help with that the light noise.
I move we continue this project. I mean, bring it back. No, yeah, continue. No, where are we? Design review, but bring it back to action, regular action.
Second that motion.
And clarification with installation of story poles.
Yeah.
Yes.
The addition of story poles for the next meeting.
Thank you for your time tonight. Appreciate your feedback. We understand that we could take another crack at this, the feedback, and understand that we're trying to create a really awesome contemporary piece of architecture, but with your feedback. in mind.
Very good. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Can I get who made the motion and the second again?
Audrey.
Audrey did the motion. I did a second.
Got it. Okay, thank you. Right, we need to take the vote though. So Commissioner Camarado,
Aye.
Commissioner Haran,
Aye.
Commissioner Schmidt,
Aye.
Commissioner Shores,
Aye.
Commissioner Say,
Aye.
Vice Chair Lowenthal,
Aye.
Chair Fa.
Hi.
Motion to move this to regular action passes 7-0.
Okay, and then we're on to,
And that action is not appealable.
oh, I'm so sorry. You're good. The action is not. Yeah, not. Right. Commissioners reports. Are there any commissioners reports? Okay. Seeing none. Directors reports. Are there any directors?
No directors reports, and just a reminder to the commission that the second meeting in July has been canceled, so we won't be seeing you until the first meeting in August, which is August 14th.
Oh, wow, it's long. I know.
It'll go by fast. Unfortunately.
And then, are any future agenda items? All right, and this meeting is adjourned at 9:50.